We're back, baby. It's the Horns Up Talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, gentlemen. The day we have been waiting for a month, or at least maybe the entire off season. Colin Simmons, Duncanville High School class 2024, top 10 recruit, the best defensive player out of Texas, committing yesterday to our Texas Longhorns. We thought there was a chance he'd go to the LSU Tigers. It was looking that way. Then in the last week, the script flipped back to the boys in burnt orange. We get Colin Simmons, and now back-to-back years, we have one of the, if not the top defensive player in the recruiting class.
Yeah, I mean, it's the back-to-back years. We have the best defensive player in the state of Texas, which is huge. So, I mean, massive, but I'm kind of waiting to see the ripple effect now, right? Are there going to be guys who end up flipping? Are there going to be guys who decide to commit now? I mean, we're still waiting on Kobe Black's decision, who is crystal ball to come to us. Ryan Wingo's another one that's got a good chance of coming to us, receiver out of Missouri. So, I mean, there's guys out there that are still huge impact players that can, really catapult this recruiting class for us. I mean, those are both 5-stars I'm talking about, but let's see who else, potentially wants to flip over. I mean, Colin Simmons tweeted out, he said, class of 2024, like, be ready to flip because we're about to like make some noise here at Texas. So it's really, it feels good. I mean, obviously, we're waiting for guys like this to come in the building. I think I read that there hasn't been a Texas defensive player commit to Texas as high as he has since Jordan Hicks. So, I mean, worked out pretty good for us with Jordan Hicks. I mean, obviously he wasn't on the best of teams, but he's an NFL player and, great product of our program. But, at the end of the day, look, I was fearful that LSU was going to swoop him, but you just can't deny the Texas NIL money. It's unbeatable. I mean, we talked about it yesterday. There's really only maybe 2 or 3, 4 schools that can really match the amount of money that you're going to make if you come to Texas and you play football in Austin. I mean, USC is one of them. We weren't even so sure that Bama was in that mix, Georgia, maybe. I don't know. I mean, like,
Ohio
it's really hard
State,
to say.
yeah, the Ohio State, the Blue Bloods, Michigan, Ohio State, LSU, like these teams are going to throw money. OU, I think, throws good
Yeah,
money.
but what I'm saying is that like we beat LSU on the money. I think like it came down to it. Like they obviously couldn't match what we had.
I think they maybe could, not match on a consistent basis, but I also don't think they don't want to. I don't think they need to as much as we do. Like we're not in the same position as they are. Quite frankly, they've won a championship more recently. They have. They've won a few in this 21st century. They also have been recruiting better. They've been in the SEC longer. Defensive players, they've churned out better defensive players by and large. It's actually not even close over the last decade to the NFL. So, yes, I think we could beat them monetarily, but I also don't think that's their game. Like, I feel like they don't need to go tit for tat with the Longhorns, whereas the Longhorns got to flex their green muscle a little bit more right now. I think OU is another sneaky team with all the rich donors they have there and the money that kind of is shadily in Oklahoma that people don't tend to realize. They're sneaky competitive. But yeah, I mean, you're not going to really match Texas's dollar. Like it's just not going to happen. The donors are too big. They want it too bad. It's been too long. They're ready to pay their way through. But the ripple effect, I mean, Micah Hudson's a guy that's locked into Texas Tech, but he can flip. That could be a major flip for us at wide receiver. There's other guys that are crystal ball to us, such as from not even from Texas, Dominic McKinley from Louisiana, the massive defensive lineman who's rated a hair under Simmons and Kobe Black on 24/7. He could be the next domino to fall with Kobe Black, hopefully, and all of a sudden we have one of the best defensive recruiting classes in the nation, leaning towards best. And then you have a guy like Baker, who is he's a 6'5", 285 offensive tackle from Mater Dei. And, like gut check, he'd probably go to a USC in Oregon. Miami's recruited offensive linemen well recently and in the past. Ohio State, Georgia, they're all in the mix. But look, Texas is right there with them. And if they're going to bring in a massive recruiting class, we've seen this time and time again with our school, with other schools like A&M did it a couple of years ago. Once dominoes start to fall and major recruits are a part of a massive recruiting class, other guys are going to want to flock to it and be a part of something special. So guys like Hudson, Wingo, Baker, guys that we may not have thought we can get a couple months ago, those are going to be major targets that are now within reach. Not to mention the McKinleys, the Kobe Blacks. I'm curious to see if we can get Bussy flipped back over to crystal ball to us from A&M. So these are all guys that we're going to be watching. The Colin Simmons, though, it's a big domino to fall, and it's fallen so much earlier than the Anthony Hill domino fell.
Yeah, well, Anthony Hill, decommitted from A&M very late. So it's nice that we're sitting here in August, before the even start of our football season. I mean, that could definitely happen to us. I'm not saying that he's for sure a Longhorn until he signs his letter of intent and he's on campus. I mean, you got to always hold your breath, but I believe that he is that type of player that's going to stay. I mean, he mentioned that he wanted to stay close to home, right, and kind of start something new here. And I don't think he's leaving. There was something like very weird about Anthony Hill going to A&M, if we're being completely honest. Like A&M, like they've been struggling. They've been struggling off the field, on the field. Doesn't really, scream culture when it comes to, landing players. And, I don't think that there's probably a ton of money that's going to be thrown at them as well with NIL. So, it did definitely sound weird. And we talked to, Alex De La Torre, one of our Longhorn homies, who coached Anthony Hill over at Denton Ryan. And he was saying, he's like, man, this kid grew up a Longhorn fan. Like, I don't, his family wants him to go to Texas. Like, don't know why he's committed to A&M. And well, he flipped. So there's definitely going to be some shuffling going around, as there always is when it comes to recruiting, over the next couple of months until, National Signing Day, and when guys decide to enroll early. And I imagine Colin Simmons is one of those kids who probably enrolls early. But yeah, I'm excited to see what else is in store for our Longhorns. I mean, obviously we've got a promising season ahead of us, but this recruiting class couldn't be looking any better right now.
Yeah, it's really, really amazing.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish this is the start of something really, really, really good. But I want to just laud the coaching staff and the recruiters that are working for the Texas Longhorns, because this is not only a major win to bring this guy to our program, but also massively sending a message about the state of Texas and the recruits in Texas to the rest of the SEC. And money was absolutely a factor in this recruiting. He said that Texas gave him the best position to take care of his family. That was a clear driving factor behind him staying at home in Texas. Certainly helps even more so that his family is in Texas. He played for Duncanville. But I think that, Josh, I think to kind of address what you were talking about between LSU and Texas, LSU wants Colin Simmons. They wanted Colin Simmons. They wanted him. Just because they can get good recruits elsewhere and turn guys into great pros doesn't mean that they didn't want Colin Simmons. They are disappointed that they didn't get this guy. And it's a massive win for Steve Sarkisian and his program. And this is the highest rated edge rusher that the Texas Longhorns have had since Jackson Jeffcoat, since 2010, since Mac Brown. That's a long time. This is not a position that we have necessarily recruited that well. So I think just from an impact standpoint, positionally, that helps as well. If he can come in immediately, I think he had 22 and a half sacks last year in high school as a junior. He was an absolute beast. Like, this guy.
I wish he was reclassifying.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, what this guy and what this can do, like you're saying, Nick and Josh, like the trickle down effect obviously is going to have massive impact. But it's a huge message that we've now sent to the rest of the SEC. And look, Bama still has an incredible recruiting class. I know LSU has won, a recent championship with the Burrow team. But to me, like, the pecking order is still Georgia, Bama, and LSU is with them, but probably the number 3 team. We have to take them down one at a time. Like, we have to continue to beat these teams in the recruiting trail, but also once we get to the conference on the field as well. So I think that, I hope that this creates kind of a budding rivalry where we go back to that game where they had the 3rd and long and they were able to convert in the season where they ended up winning the national championship. But I hope this kind of turns into a great rivalry when we get to the SEC. And this is a team that we're not only recruiting against, but playing against. And, the rivalry exists on the field as well.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up Georgia, and one of the top recruits in the class is outside linebacker he went to Oak Ridge High School, to Conroe, Texas, Justin Williams. And Georgia got him 2 weeks ago. So
you have to get the top player in your interstate. That's like the step one of the formula for putting together a good team. I mean, Alabama for sure is getting the top player in Alabama every year. If they're not, that's probably going to Auburn. But you know, at the end of the day, they're staying in Alabama.
Yeah.
Same with Georgia. Same with Florida. I mean, like, I'm sick and tired of the top player in Texas going to Ohio State, right? Or going to Oklahoma.
Oh
Or
yeah.
going to LSU. It just shouldn't happen.
I mean, I know we go off 24/7, but I'm on ESPN right now, and I'm looking at it, and like you said, the top kid, Dylan Raiola, he flipped to Georgia, the quarterback. He's the top guy from Georgia. Top kid from Bama on ESPN is Jalen Mbakwe, from cornerback from Pinson, Alabama. He's going to Alabama. Like Mike Matthews, he's from Georgia, but he's going to Tennessee. Ellis Robinson, Georgia. Like it's a mix and match. But like Duncanville, Texas, like the top dog has got to go to Texas. And Colin Simmons is going to Texas.
It's the same with all sports too. I mean, we're looking at Duncanville, and they produced Ron Holland as well, who was committed to our Longhorns in basketball, and then obviously decided that he was going to forego his college playing days and go to what was it, Ignite, or is it one of the NBA?
Yeah, he's going to the G League Ignite team.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's going to Ignite. But like Duncanville, I mean, that's a hotbed right there for talent. So you got to be able to recruit in your state, in both sports, especially if you're going to be considered, one of the top dogs. And if you're making that move to the SEC, I think, honestly, if we didn't make that move to the SEC, I don't necessarily know that we're getting Colin Simmons. I think he knows this will be the first year in the SEC for Texas when I step on campus. National spotlight's going to be all over the place. I'm going to be playing against the top players. I'm going to get a crack at that LSU team that wanted me, going to get a crack against the Bamas and the Georgias, right? Those guys who are supposed to be projected, first overall, maybe first round draft picks in the offensive line. So really good opportunity for a guy to showcase himself. We're sticking in the Big 12. I don't necessarily know that we're getting him.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really good point. I was trying to fly through, like, I don't know, if you go through the edge rushers if you go through the top edge rushers in the NFL, I could be wrong. And I was just trying to go with my mind of guys that are drafted, like the Bosa brothers, Ohio State, like Big Ten football. You play against the top offensive linemen. Like it's like a good showcase, like Aiden Hutchinson, Michigan. Obviously Will Anderson, Bama, again, like there's other guys like you could TJ Watt was a Big Ten guy. Like these go through the whole Myles Garrett, A&M at the SEC. Like these go through the entire, all the edge guys we talk about and the top defensive players. Like outside of Sauce Gardner, like most of those guys are like Big Ten or SEC guys. They're not they're not really the OU guys anymore. They're not like really big, like Big 12 guys are not really in the mix. You have Max Crosby from the Pac-12. But when you're going through in the NFL,
Thibodeau from the Pac, obviously.
Yeah, it was a big pick, but he hasn't popped off yet necessarily. I just think it's like, again, like it's no secret. Like the SEC reigns supreme. Like Chris Jones, who's one of the top defensive tackles on the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a Mississippi State guy. Like SEC, it reigns supreme. Iron sharpens iron. It's not just in the practice field like we talk about. It's on the playing field as well. And when you're going against the top competition, like you're saying, Nick, like he's going to want to go against LSU. He's going to want to go against Bama and Georgia. Like if he was going against like K-State, TCU, Iowa State, he could dominate, but it's just not as the competition is just not as stiff. And you're not getting as better, and you're not impressing. The eyes aren't on you like that.
Yeah. Well, look, at the end of the day, we're in the age of social media, and we're in the age of building your brand as big as possible. Outside of NIL money, like life after football, life after college, at least, like you want to set yourself up for success in the future. And if you look on a weekly basis, who has the most nationally televised games, it's always the SEC. You're not seeing Kansas State versus Baylor on a premium channel in the national spotlight. Like, sure, you're going to see it, but like, it's not going to be like that premier Fox Sports game, that premier CBS game, right? I know it's built out by conference, but SEC has always got the top matchup, and so when we make that move over, every game that Texas plays in the SEC is going to be huge in the national media. Texas's first game against Arkansas, Texas's first game against Florida, Texas's first game against Georgia. Like that's how it's going to be. And so these guys know that, right? And they know that it's building themselves a brand. If then they show out in front of the national media, your stock just rises every time, you get talked about getting drafted in the NFL. And that's the ultimate goal. These guys want to go pro. They want to be able to have life-changing money to help their family for generations to come, right? And to, give themselves the best opportunity to get there. And, I mean, if you're coming to Texas, all eyes are going to be on you and you're going to be going against the top dogs.
Yeah. To hammer this point home, let me ask you guys this. Our first Big 12 game this year is week 4 against Baylor. We're at Baylor. Obviously, we're going to be watching the game. If you weren't a Texas fan, if you didn't root for the Longhorns, right? These are the other games on. Ole Miss at Alabama. That's on that day. Arkansas at LSU. That's on that day. Mississippi State at South Carolina. Auburn at A&M. You got UCLA at Utah. You got Florida State at Clemson. Like going through this list right here, where does our game realistically rank on the games you'd want to watch?
I mean,
Ohio State at Notre Dame.
Last.
Like you're not watching, like you don't want to, like if you're not like a Texas fan, like you don't care that they're playing a Baylor team, which could be good or could not be. Like it could go either way for Baylor. I'm going to watch Ole Miss at Alabama. So that game could be nuts. That game could be telling. That game could be Jackson Dart's breakout party, Lane Kiffin, welcome to the dance, Nick Saban, grab some pine, Ole Miss, head into the CFP.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're proving the point right here. I mean,
that's how it's going to be.
That's how it's going to be every week for the Longhorns when they first get there. OU will get a little bit of that too, but it'll be that historic first matchup.
A lot of bit of that. Yeah, but a lot of bit of that. Oh, I would rather watch OU versus Auburn.
All you have to do is look and see how college football fans look at the program of Texas A&M now since they've joined the SEC in comparison to Nick, especially for you and I growing up in Texas. The national kind of buzz around Texas A&M at the time prior to when they were in the Big 12. It is a completely different world that the Aggies are living in comparison to where they were before. Josh, you probably never even watched a Texas A&M.
Ask me, yeah. I was gonna say you ask like me, like who did I watch growing up as like an East Coaster? Yeah, I mean, obviously I grew up an Ohio State fan, so I watched Ohio State every game. But I watched Texas. I watched USC. They were exciting when I was a kid. Texas had like Colt McCoy. Like I know I rooted for Colt McCoy. I had no idea I was ever going to go to Texas, dude. Like, I didn't know. I was like, the school's cool. I could. Like, I'm not even on my radar, but I grew up rooting for Colt McCoy, Vince Young. I love these players. Like, those are – I didn't love A&M players.
Yeah, you weren't really, like, paying attention to what Stephen McGee and Reggie McNeil were doing when up in the Northeast.
Pretty boring team in our youth, at least, to us. Like, when we were growing up in Texas, like, Texas A&M was pretty boring to watch.
Von Miller is like my first real memory of like an A&M guy in 2011.
Yeah, sure. He was like the one that kind of really set the stage. And then, of course, everyone knows what happened. There's a documentary on it now on Netflix. Johnny Football transcended that program in 2012, winning the Heisman as a redshirt freshman.
In conjunction with them joining the SEC, right?
Yes. First year in the SEC. So, I mean, if you don't think that people are watching, you know that a lot of these recruits are watching that documentary and thinking, oh, Johnny Football, Texas and OU joined the SEC, like there's got to be a little something there too. I think that really helps our recruiting, process. I mean, this came at a really opportune time for the Horns, but if you haven't seen the documentary, I know there's not a lot of A&M fans, a lot of Aggies that listen to this show, watch the show, but you should go check it out. Because
college football,
Johnny Manziel, deep down, is a Longhorn. He wanted to come to Texas. And he even mentioned that.
We've said this on the show often. How many times I saw him? I don't know about you guys, but I saw him in Austin all the time.
Parties, Fiji House,
out on 6th Street, going out, frat parties. Yeah, the whole
9 yards.
So
his dad in the documentary was like, since the day he was, could walk, he always wore Longhorn stuff. Wanted to be a Longhorn his whole life. Didn't work out. Got offered a full ride to A&M. And kind of just went with it.
I mean, I haven't seen the documentary yet, and I really want to because after our discussion yesterday with we kind of like not get into it on the couch before one of our other recordings, but we were talking about it, like how good he was in college for his redshirt freshman year versus his redshirt sophomore year. So I'm like, after y'all had left my crib, I was like, well, how good was he his redshirt sophomore year?
He was great.
Bro, he balled
Yeah.
out. Like
He
he
could
had
have
one bad
he could
game.
have gone
Really.
back to back. He could have gone back to back.
Dude,
But
he had
people
37 tucks
Yeah,
in the air, and then he had
who won it in 2013?
I'll look it up, dude. His stats were ridiculous.
Was it running back? It might have been
Was it-
Derrick Henry, right?
Was it Richardson?
Or it was one of the Bama running backs, right?
One of the Bama running backs, like, dude, his stats were so ridiculous. I was like,
I think he was already a villain, you know, after his sophomore season, right? He had already gotten in trouble, suspended for like the autograph thing, and so, you know, a lot of it's also storyline as well.
It was Jameis that won that next year.
Oh, okay,
It was Jameis.
I mean, there's also a villain there too, but
well, he wasn't the villain yet either.
Right, he had a pretty tremendous year. It was prior to the cafeteria fiasco.
And they won. They won like the whole thing. They won the whole thing. But Johnny, as a sophomore, he threw for 4,000 yards and 37 touchdowns. He was a better quarterback his sophomore year than he was his redshirt freshman year, and he still ran for 9 touchdowns, not 21 touchdowns like the year before.
It's insane.
Like,
yeah, I mean, I think about a guy like him, and it's an interesting kind of perspective piece. But with Colin Simmons, you know, with him declaring that he's committing to Texas, you talk about, Nick, you were mentioning these guys want to make life-changing money in the NFL. We are offering life-changing money as a college athlete. And that is something that is second to none. I mean, that is indispensable for anyone's life going forward. So that's just the type of program that we can be. And we're in this position in the modern era where NIL is here and we have the ability to do that. And so we have to go get these recruits, like y'all were saying, at the top of the state. And I'm looking at like 247, and that's just one place, right? But like the top 20, there's not enough Longhorns there.
Yeah.
When you get to like 35 plus, like we've done a really good job, I feel like, of recruiting from like the 35 to 75, getting those 4 stars, those 3 stars. But still, like y'all were mentioning, like Georgia has a top guy. Clemson has a top guy. That's fine if I see Texas A&M and Texas Tech. Like Tyree Wilson just went. We're talking about edge rushers. Like,
oh yeah, he did. Sorry,
he just went in the first round. But I will say that even though he was a top 15 pick,
so did Zuma from K-State.
Even though he was a top 15 pick, the way that he was compared to Will Anderson, the biggest criticism was, who did he play against? Right,
batting from behind.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, it was such an evident thing in the Giant Football documentary too, about how money, you know, is a driving force for him as a college kid, right? Going out and selling autographs. So, I mean, like all these kids think it. I mean, at the end of the day, like you're 18, 19 years old and you have the opportunity to get thrown hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, where you were literally last year eating cafeteria food. Like it's life-changing. It's so hard to say no to. And I kind of want to compare us to like the Yankees, the Dodgers, you know, like the Mets, like these organizations that have a lot of money in baseball. Like if you have the luxury to be able to do that, right? And you're not a small market team, go out and get the cream of the crop, go out and get the best players possible. And look, I mean, like it's a privilege to have this opportunity, but like you got to capitalize on it. You know, you can't be whiffing. You have to go out and spend the money. I mean, that's just how the playing field is these days, you know, like you just got to level it out. And if you're able to throw some cash at people, I mean, obviously, you know, we saw why Quinn Ewers ended up coming back to Texas, right? He originally committed to us, then decommitted, went to Ohio State, and then transferred. Got a better deal here at Texas.
I could kind of tell it firsthand. Like, I don't think I've ever said it on the show. Like when I was thinking about going to colleges, like what Texas was able to provide, like financially, like they could just throw money at you, and like it matters, like for families. Like if they're going to give you money,
you got a free education.
Yeah. But like once they offered me that, like it was pretty much, I have 2 younger sisters, like, you know, and there's no guarantee they're going to get that wherever they go or whatever. And so on. Like,
yeah,
once they offer you these kind of like money that helps your family out financially, it makes it a really tough decision to say no.
I mean, just think about it. Like the money that someone were to spend on tuition, right? For you, just a regular student throughout the course of college, is more than a down payment on a house. Like,
as an out-of-stater for sure.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I mean, nowadays, like, you only really need like maybe under $100,000 put a down payment on a house. Like, legitimately, it's a house, you know, or multiple cars. Like, these are things you use every day in life that you need every day in life. You know, I mean, talk about rent, you know, and groceries and just like in general. I mean, to have what these kids are having, like Colin Simmons, I imagine his number's probably around $500,000, maybe getting a little closer to $1 million. But I mean, that's like he can go out and buy a house right now in Texas, like flat out with cash. I mean, not going to be nicest now that like housing market's kind of boomed in Austin, but like you're pretty set right now as a young man. You know, you could start moving your assets around and start investing, and you could start building your wealth for when you're 30 years old. Like, it's pretty phenomenal now. And I feel bad for the college athletes, you know, that missed this boat. You know, I mean, you know that Quan's jealous, you know, that happened.
Yeah. I mean, like he gets the $500,000, let's say, through all the cuts with agents, taxes. I mean, not taxes in Texas, agents, like certain school things that he has to deal with, his own personal money and family. Let's say he has like, okay, savings wise, $100,000. You don't have to go and get that mortgage in Austin, Texas. How many other places in Texas that are slowly coming up that will grow, like in Texas? Like that.
I mean, I see McKinney all the time in my Instagram. It's like, here's a house you can buy in McKinney. Like, it's like, it looks like a $30 million home in Los Angeles.
Yeah, you buy it in McKinney, Texas. You put it down a down payment for $30,000. You rent that thing out, right? Charge the rent, have them pay your mortgage. Once your mortgage is paid, I forget the loan swap you can do, but you can do a loan swap to retake a loan to pay the rest of it. But there's like a net you can gain, and you could get your whole mortgage paid plus get a massive net really quickly. And then you could flip the house because it's get higher value and take the money there, profit the mortgage swap, and then you can, or the loan swap, and then you can go buy another house.
Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? And like, you just have to have a guy like and he doesn't have to do squat. He just has to have a money guy that takes a cut.
Oh, for sure.
Does all this.
Who would have thought Horns Up was giving you real estate advice and financial advice and also talking about recruiting?
We got
you covered
via Mike O'Brien and TikTok questions and answers. Take it up with him, our dear buddy who lives in Austin.
Yeah, shout out just a quick pivot to hoops, but 2024 guard Cam Scott, just from Lexington, South Carolina, committed to Rodney Terry's staff to be joining the hoop squad. 6'5", 165. It's a nice little recruit there. So he said Texas felt like home, and that's why he's making his decision.
We love that.
And I
love that, man. He's nationally. What is he? He's 32 nationally.
He committed today. Oh wow!
He literally just committed. Yeah, he's a 5-star. He's a 5-star.
Wow,
it's crazy. Cam Scott, Rodney Terry staff, top. Who says he can't recruit? Top 4.
Number one player in South Carolina. So I mean, South Carolina, you blew it. You got to get the top.
They absolutely did, and they were he was considering South Carolina, Alabama, Clemson, Auburn, Oregon, Ole Miss. So that just goes to show also us moving to the SEC for basketball, like. Those schools are in the mix. They have gotten so much better from a recruiting standpoint and from a performance standpoint. I mean, you look and see what Auburn has done recently, right? What Tennessee has done, Alabama too, how many guys they've sent to the league in the last 10 years. Like, SEC basketball is on the rise, which feels weird to say, but it really is in comparison to where it was 15 years ago. We know the football conference has always been there, but this is a big deal for us joining the SEC from a basketball standpoint, and salute to Rodney Terry and the squad for bringing in Cam Scott. That's huge. It's huge.
Yep.
Massive.
Two big pieces of news that just broke. So hang with us. Hopefully next week we'll have even better news. Maybe Kobe Black will be a Longhorn.
That he will be. Fisher DeSopoulos, Max Kreider. We got Quan Cosby back in the mix when the season starts to talk some ball. Get your horns up. It's going to be things are looking good in August. August is an orangey, fun, summery month. Burn orange headed into the fall. We love it. Hook 'em horns, baby.